What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you have experienced? About a year ago my mom and I were in the first parking space area of a small shopping mall. She was getting things ready for the store and I was waiting. The space in front of us was parked a large white SUV. I can't explain why, but I had the urge to study the SUV when I usually don't even pay attention. The family that owned the SUV came out and it was a father, infant in a carrier and a little girl. The little girl stared at us the whole time her father was getting her in the car. She had this huge oversized bow in her hair and a side ponytail and just kept staring. Even as they walked to the driver's side she didn't take her eyes off of us. The father packed her up. My mom also stared at her. It was so strange. We went into the store right after the whole family was in the SUV. When we went to open the door the same family came out. Odd little girl, father, baby and father was still holding shopping bags. My mom and I looked at each other in horror because it took him 5 minutes to pack his kids in that SUV. How could he get out and run into the store in the few seconds it took us to walk to the sidewalk in front of the store? We weren't the only ones who saw it. A worker from the food place next to the store saw it and we all exchanged looks of horror. I have no idea what this was, but I can tell you that very few people have believed me and my mom. What if the little girl was staring at you and your mom on the way to the SUV because she saw you two at the entrance of the store before? My mum used to work during the day and leave me home alone when I was around 12 or 13 and too old for daycare. She would ring the home phone periodically throughout the day and make sure everything was alright. One day I'm home alone and the phone rings. I pick it up. It's mum. We have a short, succinct conversation that's basically everything going alright, yeah, okay, don't answer the door if anyone knocks, etc, etc. Very normal conversation. It ends. I hang up and go about my day. Not even 15 minutes later the phone rings again. I pick up and it's mum again. We exchange hellos and I jokingly say, must be a slow day, you literally just rang me. And mum goes very quiet for a minute and then says, I haven't called you today. My blood went cold, and to this day I still don't know who called me. We came up with a secret password after that. When I was 14 or so I went to sleep at my typical time and woke up 2 days later in the morning. I went downstairs panicking and asking if my family knew I had been sleeping for 2 days and what had happened. The question was ignored and they told me to sit down and have some breakfast. That happened to me too. Although I was like 7 years old, went to bed normally on a Tuesday, woke up just before noon on Thursday. The only person in the house who acknowledged it whatsoever was my brother. I had a dream about marrying my husband before I even knew he existed. Even in my dream I was asking people who this person was, and when I actually met him I had to refrain from freaking out. He is literally the man of your dreams. I had this crazy vivid dream in 7th grade. I dreamed that there was a white cargo van parked outside my house. A man got out, walked to my house, broke in, then went to my brother's room and killed him. I woke up freaked out. It was 3 AM. I couldn't sleep and went into the kitchen, turned the light on, and a few seconds later the headlights on a white cargo van outside flipped on and it sped away. A little late to the party, but going to share anyway. So, I have one nice suit. I have a total of 3 or so, but most of them are 6-10 years old, a few stains, and don't quite fit right anymore. I got a new one 2 years ago, and the thing fits me freaking great. I look sharp. After my dad's funeral, I took it to get it dry cleaned at the same dry cleaner I've been to for the last 15 years, a half a mile down the street from my house, but couldn't really remember picking it up. It wasn't on my mind, as I hadn't needed it for anything. About a year later I had a funeral to go to and I could not for the life of me find my freaking suit. I took every piece of clothing out of my closet, one by one. I meticulously scoured every surface in there trying to find this suit, and it's nowhere to be found. I go check all of the other closets in my house and the coat closet in the front hall. I mean, I tore this house apart. Checked my closet multiple times. Freaking nothing. This suit is not in my house. I'm like, alright, maybe I just forgot to pick it up from the dry cleaner. Long shot, but I might as well go ask. So I head to the dry cleaner, and I ask, hey, long shot, as it would have been over a year ago, but is there any chance I might have left a suit here I forgot to pick up? She tells me that she can look up my name and phone number, and after receiving both, she tells me I've never been a customer there. I'm like, What do you mean I've never been a customer here? I know it's been a year or so, but this is literally the only dry cleaner I've ever been to. I live a half a mile down the street. I've been coming here since I moved here 15 years ago. My parents both came here. My sister comes here. There can't be no one in the system with my last name. I ask if owners or systems have changed recently, and she says no, that they've been the same for the last decade, and if I have ever been a customer here it would be in the system. I give her my last name again, parents' numbers, etc, and nothing. No one in my family is listed as ever having dry cleaning done there before. At this point she's looking at me like I'm insane as I'm standing there trying to understand why and what the frick happened to my suit then. I leave and go home, ready to throw in the towel and pick something else to wear. I walk into my closet, and my suit is sitting right there in the middle of the rack in my closet with a tag on it from the dry cleaner that just told me I had never been there. Dog, you need to take that tag into that dry cleaners and ask them what's wrong with their computers. I was watching TV when I was about 11 when I had this sudden compulsion to turn off all the lights in the house. I literally jumped up and ran from room to room. When I got to my bedroom on another floor, I saw that my net curtain had blown over my desk lamp and was smoking. It caught fire the second I got to it. I managed to put it out just in time. I only vaguely remember the incident, but one night, very late, both of my grandparents were woken up by a loud sound. My grandmother swore it was a shotgun. My grandpap said it was a car backfiring since there was no one nearby who would be shooting. We lived pretty much far from anyone, but near a highway. They bickered over it a bit then went back to bed. About 15 minutes or so later the phone rang. It was my aunt. Her husband had been shot with a shotgun by a neighbor just 20 minutes before. The thing is they live 7 states away. Okay, I have this memory and no one will believe me, but here we go. When I was probably 10 or 11, my mom was harping on me for not doing my chores. She was downstairs with me and I stormed upstairs to avoid her. When I got upstairs she was in the kitchen, doing dishes. There are no other ways to the second floor. She smiled and I almost shat myself. Walking with my daughter on a side street in the French Quarter in New Orleans late at night, back to the hotel, we hear a drunk couple giggling and walking quickly behind us, obviously getting ready to overtake us. So we step aside to let them pass, only to turn around and find that no one's there. There were no side streets or alleys until further up the block, just shuttered doors with steps going up to them. Dude, the acoustics in New Orleans is super weird, especially the French Quarter. When I traveled there I could literally hear muddled conversations and music blocks away near the St. Louis Cathedral. I was working with a friend on building some shelves in a cubbyhole in his garage. He had 2 planks, each of which he was going to cut in half, to make shelves. He cut one in half, brought it into the garage, then we decided to make lunch. Came back out and there were no cut shelves. Just 2 whole planks. When I was younger my parents took me to see the Polar Express. It was a great movie. In the early summer morning I thanked her again for taking us to the movies. She had no idea what I was talking about. Later in the year around Christmas, we went to the movies. I sat in horror as I watched the Polar Express the opening week and knew exactly what was going to happen. My mom has some friends that I've known my whole life. They're her age. Mom was single so they used to babysit me sometimes. I went over to their apartment for Halloween when I was 4 and they took me trick-or-treating around their apartment complex. Fast forward 27 years. I'm married to a girl I met in college, who had been born in the city I was raised in but almost immediately moved away, was less than a year old. She lived in other parts of our large metro, DFW, and the LA area growing up. She's heard my mom and I mention these family friends occasionally but never met them. Wife and I throw a Christmas party to celebrate our new house. My mom asks if she can invite said friends so I said of course. They arrive and we get to chatting. They ask about my wife's unusual maiden name and if she knew people who have the same first names as her parents. These family friends of ours were her parents' neighbors, as in share a wall, literally the only other door on the 2nd floor of the same building. At the time my now wife was born. I'm 3 years, 9 months older than my wife. Our family friends' neighbors had an 8-month-old infant when I went trick-or-treating at their house. I met my future wife as an infant out of total happenstance before not meeting her for another 18 plus years. I once got into a weird it's complicated thing with a girl who later turned out to have been born the same day, in the same hospital, and our mothers shared their hospital room with us for the first few days of our lives. She literally was the first girl I ever met. It's kind of a pity that never went anywhere. I was once walking in a park at night when I saw something green shoot up into the sky, like a firework, but it didn't burst. It temporarily lit up the sky and then it got dark again as the flash faded. Moments later I heard a very loud sound like a transformer having power go through it, and the next time I blinked it was bright and in the middle of the day. Not sure where the lost time went, and I didn't feel tired or anything. Unfortunately I didn't have any obligations like work or anything, so I really have no idea of knowing. Abducted by aliens. I used to get freaked out by the same customers coming in and getting the same products several times a day. Then I remembered I work in a liquor store and all my regulars are alcoholics. So I'm a glitch in your matrix. I had a dream of my ex-girlfriend before I met her. Red hair, hazel eyes, standing at the corner of where 3 streets meet. She was holding a purple luggage bag and crying. Turns out, 2 years later, that was where we'd be when we broke up. Funny enough, several years later, I now live at the apartment building where that corner is. I smoke in the back lane to avoid looking at it. 2. I experienced something like this. It was the first time I tried acid and I vividly remember hallucinating a girl and that I'd meet her on November 27 later this year. Let's see if it happens. One night, I was startled half to death by the sound of a train horn outside my window. I was not living anywhere near any sort of railway, and nobody else in my household had heard it. When I was a kid, my family came upon the aftermath of a horrific car accident. Traffic was backed up and we slowly crept by while my parents tried, and failed, to distract us kids from the carnage. Later that night, the accident was on the news. Small town, not much else to report. They showed the accident scene and all 4 of us gasped, shouted at the same time, those aren't the same cars. Everything else about the accident scene was identical, but the makes, models, colors of the cars were completely different from what all 4 of us remembered. We consulted amongst ourselves and we all remembered the same thing, but the image on the screen was totally different. We talked about that for months. Either this is a pretty serious glitch, or the news station ran the wrong B-roll clip. I was having a dream where I was singing. I woke up very suddenly from it, and then I heard some super loud screaming. It went on for a few seconds and it was enough time for me to shoot up and still hear it for a few seconds. I wasn't alone in the house, and after the screaming stopped it was dead quiet. No one else heard anything. Screwed up REM can cause auditory hallucinations as you fall asleep and wake up. I've had it before while working overnights, not fun. I remember a time when I was about 9 or 10 and I was riding in a work truck with my father. He suddenly got a call on his phone, and when answered it, it went straight to speaker and a deep distorted voice started yelling at us to get the frick out of the truck or I'll fricking murder you. The wordiest part was that my dad didn't even react, just grabbed the phone and ended the call. Dad like this crap again and puts his handgun off safety. Bit late as usual, but I thought I might tell mine. Obviously I don't remember this, but when I was around 2 or 3, my great aunt and grandmother had just returned from Scotland and the family was invited to watch the projection slideshow, showing my age, at my grandparents'. At my age I wasn't very interested until there was a picture of a large pond lake with some ducks. I piped up, I know that place, of course everyone said that's not possible, it's on the other side of the world. I then proceeded to get cranky and say, I used to live there with my mummy with the white hair, then something about my horsey and that I lived in the castle up the hill from the pond. Sure enough, the next slide was of the lake with some ruins further up the hill. My auntie apparently freaked out, turned the projector off and would watch the rest. I have a very vivid memory of a very tall, thin, elderly African American man sitting in a wide green armchair. This man has glasses, wearing a button-down shirt and dressed slacks. I described this man to my parents one day around the age of 5-7 years old. Gave as much detail as I could and my mom goes down to the basement. She comes back with a single photo and shows it to me. It's exactly who I described. Same man. Same chair. The man is my great grandfather. He died in 1977. I was born in 1991. Maybe you saw the picture when you were a small child and the memory stuck for some reason. When my friend gave a nodding what's up to my dog and the dog did the same thing back. Amazing. That's not a glitch. That's a feature. You have been visited by a dog. He's just a normal doggo, but let him know he's a good boy in the comments. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.